Hello dear friends and welcome to the channel Pharma is Simplified. In this video we are going to talk about intellectual property rights. This video is for the beginners, those who are willing to know about intellectual property rights. So before going for the actual intellectual property rights, we must know certain terminologies. First of all, what is property? Property, a thing or the things belonging to someone. In other contexts, property is also the word property is also used in order to denote a quality or the characteristic of something. But over here in this video, we are going to talk about property as a thing or a things belonging to someone. Moving to next part, what are the types of property? Property can be classified in various types like movable and immovable property. The property which can be moved from one place to another can be considered as a movable property. However, the property like home, land, farms, they are considered as immovable property. Second thing, tangible and intangible property. Property which is having a definite physical structure is considered as a tangible property, means the property to which you can touch. However, intangible property that it is not having a solid physical structure. Most of the intellectual property rights they are going to deal with intangible property. That's why this classification becomes important to us. And lastly, private and public property. People's personal belongings comes under the private property. However, the places like roads, parks, monuments comes under the public property. So this was regarding the introduction of types of property. Actual intellectual property. Intellectual property, first word we must know about intellectual. Intellectual means related to intellect. And what is intellect? Intellect is a person's mental power. Every person is having a brain which is being gifted to him by nature, and this particular brain is having huge power of imagination or creativity. And the property which is the result of use of imagination or original ideas to create something which we call inventiveness, it is considered as intellectual property. In other words, or in simple words, intellectual property is any creation of human mind, and that's why it comes under the intangible property. Intellectual property rights. So, what exactly intellectual property rights are? As that of every other property, creation of one human being has a value, and as that of all property, it needs to be protected. Hence, in order to protect intellectual property, that is somebody's creation or somebody's inventiveness, the intellectual property rights comes into exist, and they gives protection to that particular intellectual property. As well as intellectual property rights helps to use this particular property, that is intellectual property, and control its use. Means what? Means protection of that particular property from others, control its use. Now, intellectual property rights, these are the exclusively right granted by the law of our government, we can say. So it is going to prevent others from using somebody's intellectual property, manufacturing, distributing inventions, processes, applications, new and original designs, trademarks. So all this comes under these intellectual property rights. So why exactly it is needed that we must prevent others from doing all these activities? So here comes the answer, the money matters. When somebody is having some creation or invention, that particular fellow is having sole rights in order to earn money from that creation or from that invention. If some other people started using his or her invention, then definitely the main inventor will lose the chance to uh, to earn money from that particular invention. And hence, intellectual property rights prevent others by using this particular property, and it gives exclusive right to the inventor, or we can say to the originator of that particular idea. Also, intellectual property right insists some amount of novelty or originality to gain protection. Means, if you want to claim intellectual property rights, you must show certain invention or certain novelty in your work, or that must be original to gain that particular protection. Intellectual property rights are also time specific, or we can say duration specific, and it does not provide perpetual and absolute monopoly over the property. Just like other property, we are having the monopoly over the property. However, then what is protected under the intellectual property rights? So the protected is the use or value of ideas or expressed ideas is protected under intellectual property rights. Here comes the end part of the video. Intellectual property rights is not over the intangible ideas, but that right is over the physical or concrete appearance of these ideas. Means what? If somebody has invented something, he has given the design, so whatever the product of his or her design, it will be comes under the intellectual property rights. So nobody or no other person is going to design the similar thing. If somebody is having the patent over the product or over the process, so nobody else is going to use that process or that product except the person who is having the patent. So that particular idea or the invention is intangible, but the resultant concrete form is tangible, or we can say the resultant product is tangible, and hence that intellectual property right protect this. Also, if somebody is a writer or a poet, so intellectual property rights is going to protect the right of distribution or right of publication, and not that particular poetry activity or the writing activity. So I hope you come to know about this intellectual property rights from this video. Intellectual property rights, there are so many types of intellectual property rights. However, for the detailed description of these types, I am going to prepare a next video. Please do watch that video. If you get little bit information from this video about intellectual property rights, please like the video and subscribe our channel.